Hi everyone, this is Killshot 99 Gaming, and this is The Walking Dead Season 9. Why do you watch? So this has been a topic that's come up multiple seasons, and I wanted to approach it with the group tonight because it did come up a little bit last night with Fear the Walking Dead, and it's not going to be as simple as an answer as you think, because we're going to go through multiple different scenarios and really get down to the core of what we like about the show, what we don't like about the show, but we're longtime fans, so we continue to watch, and you're going to be surprised with some of the answers tonight. Before we get into that, I do have a couple special announcements and some super chats as well. I got Valar in the house. Valar says, hello 99 Army, Kills, Steph, Emmy, Kel, Sweet Tommy, sponsors, Patreons, and of course all the super chatters in full effect tonight. We also got a brand new Patreon signed up today, so congratulations. I want to give a special shout out to Wet Venom for being a part of the group. Hey, we got everything covered, and also I see another super chat. We got Pete D in the house. Pete D says, hello, and a big congrats to Kills for 75,000. Worked so hard. Buy a drink or two on me. So that is a bet. I'm going to buy 2 drinks on Pete D. And you know what? I will ask the group here to, you guys can recommend what type of drink you'd like for me to buy. And I will, I'll take a picture of it and post it on our Facebook fan page. So that'll be Thursday night. I'll do that because I've got a show with a guy and a puppet and Terry Fader. It should be good. I'm looking forward to it. But we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. And I know you guys, one thing about these streams is sometimes we take a topic and people logging in, they're going to think, okay, this is going to have a negative connotation because it's like, why do you watch? But no, we're going to turn it around and we're going to say exactly why we do watch the show. So be prepared for that. Thanks. I appreciate everybody making time on this Tuesday night. Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful week. And you know what? We'll take a vote. We'll take a vote, and it's going to be a Pete D special. Steph's already putting in her 2 cents, so she's saying some tequila beverage. A lot of good suggestions here. So let me give a little bit of my 2 cents, and I'll get the conversation rolling a little bit. And feel free to chime in. As you guys know, if you're brand new to our channel, we have a lot of interaction. So this is really about you, your comments, your participation. So I will give some of my opinions, but my opinions are not the final say. So a little bit of newsworthy information before it starts traveling through the circuit. I'm not going to be the official debunker, but you guys do know that sources come in from a variety of locations, but mostly through Spoiling Dead's fan page. So there is a loose cannon. I guess people are so starved for spoilers at this point, they want to know what happens. So before it starts making its way through all the other YouTube channels, his prediction is that Rick got shot in the stomach by a savior. That is not a confirmed spoiler. So if you see people talking about it, if you see people discussing it, it was a post. It was on a whim. It's taken a life of its own. A lot of people are like, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. And that's why I have the bridge scene up there as well. But the powers that be over on the spoiler site are saying, no, that's not the information that we got right now. So if you start seeing it pop up and people are talking about it, now you know, right? It has zero credibility. It's just a dude who's posting stuff. All right, I see some good predictions in there. So, but what I want to ask while we do still have this picture up on the screen, exactly, Diane Estes says, that is not epic enough. Rick gets shot in the gut and then he dies. Well, here's the thing, and this is another reason why that doesn't happen. Because if Rick gets shot in the gut fighting a savior on this bridge, on this scene, those people are not all running by to kill the walkers. One person is going to stop and say, hey, Rick, you okay? Your side doing all right? And Eugene's right there. So Eugene is probably going to be one of the first people. But they don't. They all run to fight walkers. No. I mean, I didn't believe it when I read it, and then I didn't believe it when Ninja actually said it's not believable, and I didn't believe it because we still think that the blood around Rick's collar and the blood dripping down is Aaron's blood. That's what I'm going to say. You guys know how I feel about this. I got a super chat. I'll get back to that in 1 second. So 1189 Paris says, I don't like when the writers tried to make Rick into a villain. Season 5, when Rick told Daryl and Carol they would take over Alexandria. And last season when Rick murdered the runaway saviors with Morgan. That is a good reason not to like. But that is the type of thing that some people are going to watch the show for. And that is one of the topics I'm going to have. So Paris, hold tight 1 second, because I do want to, we're going to dig a little bit further into your super chat, because I've got kind of something that we want to talk about that's sort of related to character change and how characters are one way, and then, some people like that inconsistency. Paul Eagle saying, maybe a whisper saying, you're next. Chosen, I'm not going to get into exactly what other people on other channels may predict. I will say this, because you brought it up. The boots are Rick's. The boots are Rick's. The hole in the boots are the hole in Rick's boots. I've seen those boots zoomed in. I've seen scenes of Rick and zoomed in on his boots with the little hole in the front where the toe is. So, I don't have the time to argue with every YouTuber that's out there. I will say it'd be awfully dang coincidental if a Walker's wearing the exact same boots as Rick. And 1189 Paris, that might be the opposite, because you said that you didn't like the way they made Rick into a villain. Well, according to other YouTubers out there, apparently Rick is nice enough to take his boots off and give them to a Walker. He's like, hey, I know you're dead, you're reanimated, but you probably need these more than I do, so here, just take these. They're very important to me. They're, boots I've had for a long time, but I'm going to be leaving the show, and why not pass them off to a Walker and just let him carry the tradition? Seriously. There's some things that we probably shouldn't even talk about, and that is an obvious. And I mean, right? You can see Rick doing that. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna make this a little bit too casual, a little bit too laid back. Move on to a couple topics. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that, because that is going to be something that is discussed on different channels. You guys know how it goes. Once again, this picture. So the reasons you watch. Why do you watch? Paris, you continue to watch the show, even though your super chat said there are things about the show that you don't like, and I'm going to bounce it back to you. So instead of just making characters into a villain, what is it that brings you back? What's a couple things, Paris, that keeps you turning on the television set? And you know what? If it's, hey, there's nothing else on TV, I'm cool with that explanation. Candy watches for entertainment. Don't get too far ahead, because you guys are going to steal all my bullet points, steal all my ideas. But I do want to see Paris's follow-up, because I want to see how that is in combination to the things that you don't like. Pete D, I don't think I have that as a bullet point. I think that's an excellent point that you watch because the breakdown of society. I absolutely. I think that's part of the reason why I do watch it. I just didn't articulate it quite that well. E-Beach, a fan. I get that. But what makes you a fan? And that's going to be some of the topic of conversation. So how many, what's up, Devin? How many people watch the show because they're invested in it? I get that. But how many of you here like to see how the show portrays the comics? Emmy saying storyline. That kind of along the lines. Toledo, I watch because love the post-apocalyptic zombie genre. I definitely falls into that category. So Viola likes to compare the comics to the show. Legend, never really read the comics. Candy, don't read the comics. So those of you that don't read the comics, how many here have at least watched a couple of the comic book reads that I've done? Or maybe even not watch. You don't really need to watch them. You could kind of listen going down the street. Hopefully you kind of know who's talking and which character that is. I don't want to use the word interesting, but to me what's cool about that is, and those of you that have been with the channel a long time, you know I never read the comics. So I only read the comics because the hardcore Walking Dead fans here were like, Kills, you got to read them. You got to read them. And they are time consuming. It's time consuming to read them and then get them posted. And Sheila, it's also hard to read the comics sometimes and skip some of the stuff, especially when you're introduced to Negan. That's not easy to do. There's only so many ways you can say melon farmer. I mean, just not that many melon farming words out there. So for me, it was not watching the show to see how closely it adheres to the comics. The comics to me were more of a after the fact, oh, that's why. Like, now I understand it. But I've done bits and pieces of the research only for videos. But watching the comics, it's like a totally different series to me. And I think when you see the comics first, you're kind of pulling for the show. It's like, oh, I know what's going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. When you do it in inverse order, I don't even feel like it's the same show. I feel like it's totally different. But, hey, that's why some people watch it. I got a few more questions I'm going to ask just in a couple seconds here. 1189 Paris coming back with another super chat. You could have just answered. You didn't have to super chat that, Paris. I would have found you eventually. Paris says, I like how the characters deal with difficult situations, but Rick is the protagonist of the show. He's supposed to be the leader that helps rebuild the world, not bring it down by killing or taking advantage of innocent people. So that is a beautiful, beautiful super chat. And I'll tell you why it is. Because I could not have two people and two great people on further ends of the spectrum than Pete D and 1189 Paris. So, Paris, your reason for really liking the show is how characters solve problems and how they solve issues. And what you don't like is the fact that Rick is not able to withstand the pressures that he's dealing with. Whereas Pete D is kind of a little bit the opposite of that. He kind of looks forward to seeing that breakdown. It's interesting to me, I'm speaking for Pete, not for myself, but he says it's interesting to see how these strong characters, a lot of times, crack under pressure. Because that is a lot of the reality. And it's a very difficult thing to write. And it's a very difficult thing to do to entertain. So part of the reason why, and there's many reasons why I watch. I didn't really stack rank them. But I think for me it's a combination of those things. I do like the way they get together and solve problems. But I also like when there's chaos. Because the chaos to me really gets me into the psychology of the character. So I guess if I had to summarize the whole thing, the psychology of The Walking Dead is what attracted me to it. When people asked me to watch it several years ago and said, hey, you're going to love this show, I didn't. I didn't until I started to see the character development. But I never got attached to one character more than the others. I acknowledge it's Rick's story in the beginning, but I was interested in Morgan's story. And I was interested in Glenn's story. And I was interested in kind of what they all did. So, how many people watch The Walking Dead to see who's going to die? Because they've accepted the fact that characters are going to die. They're okay with characters dying. And they just want to see who's next. Which is why the slide is on the screen. I'm not saying Carol's going to die. What I am saying is that there's the unpredictable. Daddy Corleone says absolutely. Jimmy says no, never. All right, but Jimmy, I got to call you out on that. I love me some Jimmy's jamming. But Jimmy, do you remember season 7 after the big beatdown? And do you remember the Kingdom? And do you remember Oceanside? And do you remember the story and how tough it was to follow the story? Because every week it was like, all right, this week we're watching Daryl eat dog food. And then this week we're learning about Richard and a couple people from the Kingdom. And there were so many characters. You couldn't follow all the characters. That sometimes you wouldn't see a character for 3 weeks. There's some characters you probably didn't see for a month. And then you got to be like, wait a minute. What happened with Oceanside when Aaron went out there? Refresh my memory. Now, luckily, we talk about it a lot. So, although there is a huge part of the audience that says, well, such and such shouldn't die, and you know, I don't watch to see the characters. If they didn't kill characters, the show would be boring. Think about how hard it would be to develop the core group of characters if none of them ever died. Well, see, that's the thing, Walani. Walani says, hate when characters you follow die. But that still goes into the same bucket. Because if you don't get an attachment, if you don't feel some pain, if you don't feel some loss, you don't appreciate it. And this goes, there's a little bit of attachment to Paris's comment, like the enjoyment is watching these characters succeed and accomplish something. But if you always succeed, eventually it's not going to feel like success. It's just going to be normal. It's just going to be, okay, hey, yeah, they did something else. You got to have that loss. You got to have that pain. You got to have that character that you kind of live through in order to appreciate the show. And the writers do. Legend, I think that's a fair question. Do we appreciate Carl's death? most people know. And I'll wait for a couple of the reactions because there are some Carl fans. But let me tell you, I didn't care. I'm okay with it either way. A lot of people are going to say Carl's death didn't happen. But what's funny is, and I kind of have the luxury of doing the streams and seeing some of the comments. Before Carl died, there were many people in our streams that could care less who Carl was. Chandler overacts. Chandler can't take over the show. That doesn't make any sense with Carl. Carl should have did this. How did Carl get out of the back of the truck and he didn't kill Negan? So many things. And then when Carl's gone, some that were on the fence immediately hated it. Devin says, I want him to die for a while. So not everybody was a big fan of Carl. Do we appreciate Carl's death? No, I don't think it was the best death on the show. You know, some people are going to say he deserved a better death. It should have been a little bit different. Carl died helping Sadiq. He died to try to change the tide of the war. I understand what the writers were trying to do. I don't think it worked to the effect that they were trying to do it. And many of you would agree with that. But you can't necessarily fault them for trying. It's like, hey, you know, this is the way the tide has to go. And Wilson, I'm okay with that too. It was dragged out way too long. I won't overly defend it. I'm not saying it was a good move, but I'm not saying it was the worst move that I've ever seen on the show. Because I came back the next week and watched. I got a super chat. I'm going to get back in. I do want to develop that thought just a little bit more, though. Because we've got, looks like Jimmy's jamming in the house. So, Jimmy says, Kills, I guess I'm like Captain Kirk. I like my pain. Well, you can be like Captain Kirk. When I think of Captain Kirk, though, I just think of, gentlemen, that's just you. Beam me aboard. You gotta, if you're gonna say it in Captain Kirk-ism, you gotta take a sentence and you gotta make it into 4 sentences. That was the scene where Captain Kirk was in the shuttle and he was drifting toward the log that looked like it had a mouth. I don't know what that was, but yeah, he was trying to be energized into the Enterprise, and Scotty could not get the Energizer to work. And he was getting desperate at the very end. Anyway, there you go. Just a little extra stuff for you. Toledo. Without certain characters, the story can basically fall apart, and viewers start to not care. Writers need to be careful with characters' death and how they execute them. That is very well said. And Carl Grimes is no Rick Grimes. Carl, to me, would rank in popularity, to me, I could be wrong, much higher than Abraham, but not as high as Glenn. Would you agree? Would you agree that Carl is somewhere in between Glenn and Abraham? Let's see how many people are right there. Okay, most people agree. Then who cares? He's dead. The only thing we really criticize is it was kind of a corny death. Glenn's dead. Abraham's dead. Carl's dead. Show goes on. I get what they were trying to do with it. I just don't think it translated to TV very well. But like I said, I'm not going to fault them for making the move and what they figured they had to do. I wouldn't say his importance is equal to Tara. I would give Carl a little bit of credibility. But back to the point here. He ain't no Rick Grimes. So killing Rick is a monumental event. And I'm going to say it right now. I mean, why we watch the show. I won't understand it. I've played 100 Rick deaths in my mind right now, and I cannot find one scenario where I'm going to say, all right, yeah, Rick was more important than Carl. Rick was, let's move on. I'm going to struggle with it. I'm going to watch the show, but I will not defend it. I will not defend a death of Rick Grimes. The only thing that I will defend is an open-ended storyline for Rick Grimes. So if episode 5, they kill him, you just better be prepared for a different kind of stream. I'm not going to say, that was great writing, I'm on board with it, he got stabbed, he tried to save some people, he rode off on a wire. I'm not going to do it. It's going to pain me. All right, I got another super chat, and then we're going to get to another slide here. Wilson says, people watch because Daryl appears in between soap ads. I don't... Steph, do you want to take that one? Wilson, I'm gonna turn you over to Steph the Cuervo Queen, because you definitely are you're encroaching in her territory. Jason Mixologist says, Achilles rant. Jason, you know my streams far too well. No, I won't rant on it, because I do have some what I feel are decent bullet points that I do want to get to tonight. All right. How many people watch the show because they want to see who the next big villain is? Oh, man. And I missed another super chat, so hold on. Hold that thought. I was scrolling, and Paris is super chatting like mad tonight. All right. Scratch this slide. Hold on. Time out. Pause button. Everybody hit the pause button. Let me get back to this. One of the things that Paris pointed out is I also didn't like how the show handled Spencer. I thought he could have stuck around after Deanna died and became the little Joe of The Walking Dead. I did not believe how resentful he became of Rick in season 7. Let me ask the group this. Now, this is something, Paris, and I'm going back to the comic, that I thought the show really went very closely aligned, very close with the comic, with the Spencer death. Because Spencer was, even in the comic, was looking to... hang on, let me reflect here for a little bit. I don't know that he was looking to take over, but he definitely did not like the way Rick was doing things and was behind some of the anarchy. Was behind some of the suggestions. I'm trying to go back and remember that issue. I mean, I remember just a couple of things because, Spencer... deserved... Paris, I'm struggling with that. I think... I'm reading a couple comments here because this makes good sense. I mean, Spencer, from that perspective, had every reason to blame Rick for his family's death. I didn't like Spencer. So he did get his comic death. Julie, I get that. But the lead up to his comic death seemed like it was more apparent in the TV show than it was in the comic. And Paris said Spencer was a hothead, but I thought he could be redeemed. I think it was very similar to the comic, but because it's on television, it maybe made him look a little bit more like a snake. Well, Lonnie says he flip-flopped too much. Hey, Rabbit, how about, there you go. I mean, problem solved. Dude comes in here and says, stop live streaming. How about stop attending? And, you know what? Just for that dude who must have been lost and looking for a different stream, I'm going to ask everybody, before we get to the next topic, everybody in the 999 Army, do me a huge favor. Slap the like button to show the one person that was lost how awesome this group is and what we're all about. And let's just get this thing cranking. There you go. I'm not going to rant, Fluff. I just wanted to address something. Spencer almost got Olivia killed. Anna says Spencer deserved what he got. So, Paris, this would be a matter of perspective, and I think we probably got three different perspectives here. And that's a good point. So Spencer did kill the wolf that attacked Alexandria. I'm not saying that there was not some good in Spencer. And Rosita saw enough cuteness in Spencer. I mean, she did say she used him. But Rick didn't kill Spencer. Spencer was a transition much like Carl was a transition, but not to that level. And this is what I mean by that. They had an easy opportunity to replay an epic comic scene and say, you got guts. They have Spencer trying to negotiate behind the scenes with Negan. And to me, Spencer's death was more about showing the complexity of Negan more than showing the salvageability or the opportunity for Spencer to carry on Deanna's legacy or to carry on a bigger part. Spencer's death was about Negan. Like, you know what? Negan doesn't like cheats, liars, backstabbers, cowards, rapists. I mean, Negan stands for what he stands for. So they had the opportunity for an awesome reenactment, recreation of a comic scene, and they also had the chance to further develop Negan's character, to say, there's more to him than meets the eye. This guy can cook spaghetti. This guy can hold a baby. And then at the same time where he's with Judith, he can threaten Carl. He can make a move on Olivia. I mean, it just shows he's not one-dimensional. So that is probably a good segue into another bullet point that I have for you guys, and I got a couple questions. So Paris may say Spencer, but I want to know, because the topic of tonight's show, all of you that are just tuning in, is why do you watch? Question I have for the group here is, which character died too soon? And I know we've talked about variations of this, but I don't know that I've ever asked this question as pointed as that. Died too soon, either you thought they should have had a comic arc, you thought that they should have had a better TV show arc, you thought that there's more things that could have happened. Fair enough. Some people are saying Carl, Noah, Glenn, Richard. Richard? Yeah, and you could probably compare the Spencer situation maybe even to the Richard situation if you wanted to kind of split hairs on that. They did bump up Richard's level of evil and deceit by giving up Carol, Benjamin's death. I mean, look, he was indirectly involved in Benjamin's death, but by no means did he want Benjamin to die. And Richard was a soldier. I mean, Richard's somebody that you saw that could have, one or two people here or there, and you got an army. You keep Abraham alive, you keep Richard alive, you find a way to lead those people. So, we got some people saying Andrea. Merle. Just curious. I mean, I want to see some of the ideas that are out there. And I knew we'd be all over the place on this one. I would have loved, absolutely loved, to see a better Axel version on the TV show that lasted as long as Carol. I absolutely loved Axel's character in the comic book. You follow me? Sorry. I had to do it. I don't know. Maybe it would have gotten annoying after a while to hear that over and over again. But I did like Axel in the comics. And hey, Carol made it out of the prison scene alive. It'd be nice if Axel would have. Yep, a couple thoughts here. All right, so those are some of the characters that we feel died a little bit too soon. This one, you don't have to answer. And this probably could have been a question on random things. However, sometimes when I say you don't have to answer, a lot of people do like answering because they are the deep, scrupulous type of questions that we ask. So I'm not asking this to find out about you. Or am I? Which character do you most relate to? If you feel comfortable answering that question, because I do, want to know where the attachments come from. Because I think that is a good percentage of, that's a big reason why people watch the show. They see one or two characters like, yeah, that's what I would do in that situation. I see a lot of the women speaking up like, I'm Carol. Should I ask, are you badass Carol? Or are you whiny, I'm not going to kill anyone ever again Carol? Which Carol would you be? T-Dog. There you go. Cookie Carol. I like it. Drama King. Can I ask you something? He would definitely be Shane. Dwight. Not a lot of Dwights out there, but yeah, I can see that. Sergeant Chosen One can most relate to Rosita. Yeah, I love it. And what's funny about this question is it didn't take you guys long to answer this question. So subconsciously, you've already thought it through, which means there is that attachment, which is a big reason why we keep watching the show. Legend 83 says, how about you, Kills? Who do you most identify with? So I'm going to throw this out to the group. You know what? This will be our spotlight question. So instead of me answering the question, I'm going to ask the audience, which character do you most correlate me with? And do not say Judith, because I've gotten that before. So if you had to attach me to a character, if you're going to attach me to a character, attach me to Rosita. No, not. Just curious. Glenn, Abraham, Rick, Pete D, a cross between Eugene and Abe. You know what? I could do that. We're all over the map. We can't even agree on the host. I'm not even going to do a follow-up question and ask why. I'm sure there's reasons. E-Beach says Eugene. All right, fair enough. So we've asked many, many questions of why we watch The Walking Dead. And, we heard this a little bit, last night with Fear. I'm a Fear defender. Because I like what they're doing. I like the attempt. And, maybe in some regards I pull for the underdog. And I thought Fear was a little bit of an underdog and still gets a little bit of a bad rap. But this is not related to Fear. Because we could definitely find many, many things that didn't make sense. So I'm going to give you the opportunity. And you can't pick Carl's death. Okay, here's the one thing you can't do. I'm using that as... I'm the host. I can make the rule, okay? I'm just making one rule. Don't try to change all the rules. Which part of the Walking Dead story made the least amount of sense from the beginning of the show to right now? And I'll do two. All right, two ways you can't answer. One, you can't say, well, just the whole fact that there's zombie apocalypse. You can't, do that. And you can't pick the Carl death. So which part of the show, in your mind, made the least amount of sense? Not Fear. Stoner, not Fear. I was only using that as a reference. Carl's change of heart. Okay, that I'll give you. The best storyline. The long trip in season 5. Andrea being with the governor. Good point. Deborah Cox says the survival of Judith. There's some strong people have died, but they find a way to keep the babies alive. the length that the technology lasted for 8 seasons. Heath disappearance. It's good stuff. I mean, good answers. LRT says the garbage people. You know what? I'm holding out. I got a feeling there's something bigger with that whole scavenger storyline with Jadis and Alpha. I'm just not giving up on it yet. Toledo and Diane Estes, I will agree with you. The Oceanside story, there were parts of it that didn't go very well. I think when they circled back and tried to piece it together, the fact that Simon probably murdered all the men, and then we saw Simon murder everybody with the scavengers, and we see how he was probably selective in the beginning, and then he just kind of lost it at the end. So I think if you attach Oceanside to some of the other things that are out there, maybe it's still hard. It's still hard to accept the Oceanside story. What is even harder to kind of understand is how far that Heath and Tara might have been out. I just want to know where Oceanside is, I guess. If Oceanside is up the Potomac River and, Alexandria is not far from the Potomac River. And in fact, from Alexandria to the ocean, probably only 25, 30 miles maybe. But Tara was walking up munching on a Twizzler with the sunglasses on. So for her to walk all the way back from the ocean side, that part of the story, I know I'm picking. I know I'm just, kind of. But one would have to assume that Oceanside is a lot closer than you think. However, when Aaron and Enid drove there, it seemed like much, much longer. No, Tommy, because the Potomac River goes right into the Atlantic Ocean. And it's all pretty close. Like literally, you could take one of those cruise ships in Washington D.C. and get on the Potomac River and just go a few miles up the Potomac River, and then you're in the ocean, and then kind of turn around and go back to Washington D.C. Cars having unlimited gas. I mean, those are all good points. So I got one more question for the group, and I'm going to give you, this is kind of a second chance opportunity. How many people watch the show not because you're interested in seeing society break down, but because you're interested in seeing which new people the show will introduce? I don't know this is going to be a big, big group of people. It's like, man, I can't wait to see Magna. I can't wait to see Alpha. I mean, maybe half the group. Very good, Kelly. I'm sorry, and I called her Kelly. Very good, Kel. Kel just went Althea on you guys, and hopefully you guys know it. New people? I like new people. And see, you guys know. Drama King watches to see who the new villain is. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. How many people watch the show because they like to get a couple of spoilers and a couple of the predictions, and they like to watch the show to see how closely aligned the predictions and spoilers were? That's me. I'm guilty. I would say a good portion of the group here, of the 999 Army, both things, because that's kind of what we do. It's doing the spoilers all week long, and, well, not spoilers, sorry. Doing the predictions all week long, and then getting the spoiler, and then watching the show, and just kind of matching all three. All right, bonus question. Anybody want to take a guess of what the picture on the screen is? This is just for fun. The death wall. People who passed away. I'm looking for something a little bit more specific. A memorial. Dead characters. People who died. Nobody's gotten it yet. Hold on. Andrew Narcisco says predictions. So, just a little sidebar. And I learned this the hard way because when we started doing live streams, and I caught a little flack because we did spoilers and thumbnails. So this is a thumbnail that I actually posted a couple years ago. And when I predicted that Glenn and Abraham would both die, this was one of the thumbnails, and I was trying to be cute and sort of put it on the wall and do it as a hint. And it piques curiosity, but then after people watched the video, it became obvious after the fact that it was telling them that. But unless you watch the video, it just seemed like, yeah, just a speculation. So you had to watch it in order to get the spoiler, even though it said spoiler. Abe is in red because I did a hidden clue that I said Big Red, Orange Crush would die. So anyway, I just want to tie that in. This was an actual spoiler thumbnail that I used a couple years ago when we talked about Glenn and Abraham dying. And how many people watch the show for the relationships? Just be honest. If you do, you do. Nobody's going to laugh. Nope. I knew a few people would come forward. Romantic, yeah. Not really. See, Kinchman's like, I like Rosita. 0% of the time, Andrew. For sure, it's a part of it. Because there was a lot of excitement around the Carol Ezekiel thing and the love triangle with Daryl. All right, now it is time. We're 55 minutes, so we are going to wind this video down in a little bit. But now it's time for my indirect scoring. I wasn't keeping an exact tally of everything that you guys were saying, but I do get a pretty good pulse of the group, and I do get a pretty good overview. And the purpose of these and doing follow-ups, and we'll probably do another video in the very near future. Why do people still watch The Walking Dead? And maybe even fear The Walking Dead, because it is a slightly different topic. But in order for me to understand what the viewers like, the one thing of all the things that you guys answered, and we talked about, do you watch for the spoilers? Do you watch to compare the comics? There's a percentage that do that. Do you watch because there's hope, there's new villains, the new heroes that are introduced? You like the story, you're a fan. But the one thing that you guys drilled down and almost answered instantaneously is when I asked the question of which character do you relate to? And I think all the things are small pieces, but if there's one part of this chat tonight that seemed to me to stand out more than others, it's that we put ourselves into a zombie apocalypse and we put ourselves into the character of one or two people. And we validate what they do and we criticize what they do. And when they do something that's outside of what we would do as that character, it frustrates us. And when we lose that character, it angers us. And a lot of those conversations tonight were, well, if such and such dies, I'm going to quit watching the show. Well, I understand it when I ask it that way. Is for me to understand that hatred and that anger at Gimple or at producers or at the story or that person you just lost. And because I've done a ton of these. I've done therapy sessions afterwards where we talked about characters that were gone. I don't think there's been a character that I have put myself into to that level. But if I'm honest, Rick might be the closest, and maybe that's why I'm struggling so much with the potential loss of Rick. For one, it doesn't make sense. But if I listen to my own advice of what I just said, part of the reason why it doesn't make sense is because I can see those decisions and I can see those conversations play out. Hopefully that makes sense. And did I miss another super chat? Let's go back and check. Actually, there you go. I got Michael Curie. I did miss that a little bit earlier. And let me go ahead and address that. Michael's super chat earlier was, will I get over it if Rick dies? Absolutely. But don't expect a positive, upbeat, nominating the writers for writers, whatever awards they get. It's not a writer's globe, is it? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The awards that the writers get. I'm not going to be happy about it. And, Rhonda's asking kind of that gut-wrenching question. Do I think that Rick is dying or leaving? I think he's leaving. I really do. I'm not a uber Rick fan. But I do relate more to Rick than other characters. And I will miss Rick more than other characters. But I will still be curious about what happens and who they introduce and all those other little pieces. But it's going to be, if he dies, The stream after that show is going to be one of the toughest streams that I've ever done. Because normally you're trying to talk and moderate, but there's going to be so much raw emotion in that chat that we can't prepare for it. Sergeant Chosen One. Rosita is my girl. Watch out, Eugene. Yeah, I think Eugene is already there. I got a feeling that time skip is going to, with Eugene buffed up and the time skip. Just one last question. Do you think Eugene might actually incorporate a couple of Abraham's one-liners to impress upon Rosita just a little bit more? No? You don't think you'll kind of sneak one or two in there? Drama King is a good point. Crystal Gore with Super Chat says, what if Andrew Lincoln wants the character to die, so there's never the opportunity to come back because he'd want to do it? Crystal, here's the hard reality of that business. It doesn't matter what Andrew Lincoln wants. It really doesn't. Because he could point blank look them in the eye and say, I'm never coming back. And they could recast his role to someone else. They could have him disappear into the sunset and leave it open-ended. But it's a business decision. They own the rights to the character. They own the rights to Rick Grimes. It's going to be what they want to do. I mean, as a follow-up, Crystal, could you accept it easier? No, I don't. I accept the fact that Andrew wants to leave the show. I got no problems with that. There's other people that do have problems with it. They're like, dude, you need to give us 2 more seasons. You need to give us 3 more seasons. Sacrifice your family. You need to do whatever. I'm not one of those people. He can do whatever he wants to do. But I am one of those people. I'm not attached to Andrew Lincoln. I'm attached to the character of Rick Grimes. More so. For many, many reasons. Oh, Deborah, I'm not talking about a recasting of Andrew Lincoln in the second half. I'm talking about a recasting of a recasting of Rick Grimes, 5-year time skip, somewhere down the road when you could get someone older, someone that's not as capable as current Rick, and let him ride in and end the story. Or negotiate something with Andrew and bring him back at the end. And Jimmy's jamming, I would too. But that's been a very hot topic in many of our debates. So Jimmy's jamming, and you know what? I'll put it up there just for one last comment as well. Jimmy says, I could take a recast over killing Rick off. And I'm going to ask that. That is going to be our last Super Chat spotlight of the night. I've asked it many times, and people are warming up to it a little bit. You have 2 choices. Killing Rick and letting Andy leave, or leave it open-ended and bring a recast back after a second time skip. Pick one of those two choices. That's it. You only get one of two. And once again, typically I'll kind of give you how most people have answered this. We've probably been about 70% of our group has said recast is okay. They don't love it. That's not their first choice. But if you have a choice between Rick Grimes permanently dying, the character being gone, who started the show, or a small piece of Rick Grimes coming back through someone else, 70 to 75% of our audience probably says leave it open-ended. And you know what? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That might have been one of the best super chats I've seen. 1189 Paris says they didn't kill off James Bond when Sean Connery left. I absolutely love that. And Sean Connery was a legend. But there have been some good James Bonds. Roger Moore was a great James Bond. So, I'm going to ask one more question. You guys are going to keep the stream going because you're super chatting like mad. Who's the best James Bond ever? If you had to pick one James Bond, who would it be? Karen says Sean Connery. Damon says Roger Moore. So a lot of good answers. And Candy, that's a conversation for another stream because we could definitely talk about that for a while. Michael Curie with one more super chat says, I think Rick will be left open-ended and come back in the finale. So if many people thought a recast was better than the original, how do you really know that there's not a better Rick Grimes out there? No, really. I'm only asked this question because I just want to see who's going to answer it. But how do you know? I mean, you know what? We could do this all day long. Here you go. Let me give you another random one. How many people in this chat married the first person you ever kissed? How about that? There you go. If you don't want to answer the question, don't answer the question. Kinchman says Andy's irreplaceable. How do you know he's irreplaceable? So you didn't know. All right, yeah, okay, I get it. Wow, that went south in a hurry. Amanda Goss says, I'm going to make my point in a second, but how do you know? Sure, you thought when you kissed that person that was going to be like, that was the end. There could be nothing else out there. You're wrong. Amanda Goss says, could Morgan return to lead Alexandria? Off topic. I don't think Morgan can lead anything. I think Morgan is he's going off the rails on the crazy train pretty soon. Legend 83 says, you know when you know. Legend, have you ever been wrong about anything? Has there ever been something that you're like, you knew for a fact that you were right on it, but yet you come to find out that you weren't right? Like I said, we could do this all night. The fact of the matter is, you don't know. I mean, I could ask it a different way. If Henry Rollins was cast as Andrew Lincoln, I'm sorry, it couldn't be cast Andrew Lincoln. Here you go. Stop. Toledo, if Rick Grimes was played by Andrew Lincoln for 9 years and they did a 5-year time skip or 6 or 7-year time skip, and he had a limp and he had a gray beard and he was a little different Rick Grimes, and you haven't seen him in like 3 seasons, whatever. Still Rick Grimes. Doesn't have to be Andrew Lincoln. So here, you guys help me out with this. See, you're making this stream drag on way too long. We could all been home. We could all been done. If Henry Rollins would have played, I know Negan, but just a name that pops up, would have been Rick Grimes. For 9 years. And then he was going to die, and you saw this guy you've never heard of before, Andrew Lincoln. Andrew Clutterback. Then you think you'd probably be, man, there's no way he can replace Henry Rollins. I would say I'm in the minority here, but I'm actually in the majority because more people would rather see a recast. If you survey people, more people would rather see a recast than Rick Grimes dying. So you have a right to your opinion. You can have the strongest opinion that you possibly want. But keep in mind, that is your opinion. And you are in the minority by saying it's better if he dies and they don't recast him. Nothing wrong with it. I mean, look, my opinion's in a minority a lot of times. It's okay. But there's still a good portion of people. For me, it would be, I would love to see him open-ended and on a walkie-talkie. I would just, I'd just rather hear his voice. I'd rather have the hope he's going to come back at some point. Maybe forget about his character a little bit. Think about the other stories, but just know that Rick's out there alive somewhere. And then when they do try to throw some new character on me that I may or may not like as much as Andrew Lincoln, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to accept it a little bit differently. Because now, to me, it's going to be more about, all right, Rick's coming back to help them in this thing. Not like, oh, yay, Andrew Lincoln's coming back. I don't watch it for Andrew Lincoln. It's kind of like story, character, actors like way down on my list. it's fine. Kimberly G says Andrew Lincoln is sexy as hell. Toledo, I disagree. But once again, it's personal perspective. I don't feel that Rick and Andy are completely intertwined. Got a question, and we'll kind of end with this. This is the last one, and I'm going to wind it down. How many people here are hardcore Walking Dead comic fans? We're going to change the topic just a little bit. How many people here love the Walking Dead comics? Give me a big hell yeah. If you're a Walking Dead comic fan and you love Walking Dead comics, I got to see it. Toledo is. There you go. Speak up. Be proud. Sergeant Chosen One is. Nikki is. A lot of people. All right. Real quick follow-up question, because we got to wind this down. We're an hour and 16 minutes. Hell freaking yeah. There you go, Owen. Hell yeah. I love it. I love it. All right. Follow-up question. How many people love Rick Grimes in the comic book? Give me another hell yeah if you love Rick Grimes in the comic book. Or if you've seen one of my comic book readings and you know there is a comic out there and you know Rick is in the comics. How many people are Rick Grimes fans? All right, there we go. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of Rick Grimes fans out there. I got you. I'm right there with you. Okay, last question before we end the stream. Who's the actor that plays Rick Grimes in the comic book? There you go. And on that note, everybody, I am going to wind the stream down. I want to thank everybody for being here. You know the answer to that question. There is not one. So if you're a Rick Grimes fan, then you're a Rick Grimes fan. My name's Killshot. Give me a quick 999 if you had a good time tonight, if you enjoyed the chat. I want to do some shout-outs. I want to give some special shout-outs to all my patrons up there in the top left-hand corner. You can see brand new patrons as well. If you guys want to support the channel in some way, form, shape, or fashion, there's a link down below. We also have sponsors. If you want to rock some 999 gear, then go to Comic-Con, go to a Walker Stalker, show up in this gear, take a picture of it, post it on our fan page. You can see right there. Site is growing. Thank you so much to everybody. Appreciate all the back and forth, all the debate, all the passion. There are no winners. There are no losers in our chat. It's just a lot of hanging out, a lot of good topics, a lot of good points. Also, a lot of special shout-outs just for the people that super chatted. Paris, way too much with a super chat tonight, but thank you. Your contributions, your thoughts, you've been here for a long time, so I appreciate everything that you do, but tonight was a little bit excessive, but thank you so much. And Jimmy's Jamming, everybody else that did super chats, I appreciate you guys posting your comments, keeping the conversation going, and here we go. A whole bunch of, just thank you for the 75,000 subscribers. Thank you for showing up every night. Thank you for your comments. You guys are absolutely amazing. So, Ida Roma, Crystal Gore, Diane Estes, Lenore Smith, Lou F., Rhonda DeLuca, Holly B., Amanda Goss, Tammy Torres, Viola McGowan, Lamar Lanham, Pete M., my moderators, Emmy, Steph, Tommy, Kells, Jimmy's Jammin', I see you, Laura Butler, L. Ortiz, C. Kinchman, Deborah Mooney, Karen Law, Melinda Kettler, Howling Wolf, Madison Dickey, thank you so much. Delmarva, 1971, Anna Demo, thank you. Owen Cardellino, Samantha Coombs, Damon DeRisio, Legend 83, have a good night. Shane Hassan, Kimberly G, Julia Drums, Drake Onus, Dermick, DDA Ohio, thank you so much. Casey, Thank you, Pete D. Have a good night. Also, thanks for the super chats, Valar, Pete D. Everybody's. Who else super chatted tonight? Just a ton of people. Wilson, Michael Curie, thank you so much. Sergeant Chosen One, Crystal Gore, Amanda Goss, all of you tonight, and appreciate your comments. DJ Dimestott, Slam Donkey, Andrew Narcisco, Gina Crockett, Mike, the real Rick Grimes. We're going to miss you soon. Tommy V. Deborah Johnson says topic for tomorrow. Yes, there will be a topic for tomorrow. You'll find out tomorrow, Deborah. Don't be getting ahead of the game here. It's less than 24 hours away. Maria Favada, thank you. Have a good night. Well, Toledo, because Glenn's dead, so no one can play Glenn. Bumblebee Brown, have a good night. He's not going to let it go. Every time Toledo, I'm just going to turn to the right. I'm going to have to look away. Nikki 4709. Nikki, it'll be Walking Dead related. eBeat 72, have a good night. Gee 74. And the rest of you are still here. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Come on now. What are you doing? Shane Hudson, have a good night. Thank you, man. Tim Lamora, thanks, man. Have a good night. Thanks, James McDade. Appreciate it. Stoner, peace out. DD Ohio, I know there was a Darren from Bewitched, but I can say it's not a show that I'm overly familiar with. So I cannot answer that question. And a demo, there is a stream tomorrow night at 9:30. So stream tomorrow night, there's not a stream on Thursday night. Jason Mixologist, thank you so much. Love those emojis. Ron Burgundy Moore, have a good night. Yeah, and this is, wow, this is almost an hour and a half. Holy smokes, everybody. All right. Hey, everybody, if I missed you in a shout-out, just leave it in the comments. Also, do me a favor. When people leave comments, when this video goes live, get over there, leave a couple comments. Let me know what you liked, agreed with, disagreed with, why you watched the show. And when other people leave comments, respond to their comments, of course, in a good nature. But, keep bringing them back, and that's the way our channel is going to continue to grow and push our way to 100K very soon. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you. Peace.